Celeb Savant is a career retrospective type interview focusing on singers, actors, and industry experts. Join Barrett Edelstein now as he dives into the entertainment world.
Richard O'Brien is a British and New Zealand actor, writer and singer. He wrote the musical stage show The Rocky Horror Show in 1973, which has remained in continuous production. He also co-wrote the screenplay along with director Jim Sharman for the film adaptation The Rocky Horror Picture Show in 1975 and appeared on screen as Riff Raff. Richard co-wrote the musical film Shock Treatment in 1981 and appeared on screen as Dr. Cosmo McKinley. From 1990 to 1993, Richard presented the Channel 4 game show The Crystal Maze. He played the voice role of Lawrence Fletcher in the Disney Channel animated series Phineas and Ferb from 2007 to 2015 and 2025 to the present. He also appeared in the two films for Phineas and Ferb in 2011 and 2020. His other acting credits include Flash Gordon in 1980, Spice World in 1997, Ever After in 1998, Dark City in 1998, Dungeons and Dragons in 2000, and Elvira's Haunted Hills in 2001. After a long and successful career based in the United Kingdom, Richard gained dual citizenship with New Zealand in 2011. Up next on Celeb Savant, discussing his journey in the entertainment world and the newly released documentary Strange Journey, the story of Rocky Horror, is Richard O'Brien. Where are you in the world and how are you doing?
I'm in New Zealand, Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud, in the southern hemisphere. I came here in 1952 as a 10-year-old child with my parents. I went back to Britain in 1964 for a year's working holiday, and it took me over 50 years to get back home again.
Okay, so it's been a fascinating and interesting journey. So let's rewind. At what age, whether as a child or teenager, did you think, okay, you want to be in this creative world, and how did that journey progress?
Rock and roll came into my life. I was one of those children that I was the first. I was one of the first teenagers. When that term was introduced to the world, I turned 13, and a strange thing happened. Psychology, its presence was more keenly felt. It appeared in the 20th century. It was a phenomenon of the 20th century, and of course, universities started to teach Jung and Freud as a basis for psychology. It also it enabled advertisers to use psychological means to sell product, and so we had these people leaving university with degrees in psychology, like Fraser Crane, for instance. And what did they do? There wasn't really a job for them, but we insisted that there was, and they became probation officers. And they allowed, Rebel Without a Cause is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. They enabled the teenager. We were troubled youth. My older brothers weren't allowed to be troubled youths. They had to pull their socks up and grow up, you see. And we were indulged. And, you know, I'm afraid I was arrested development for most of my life, unable to get past, 13 or 14 or 15. And that was it, really. Rock and roll came into my life at the same time, and I was, I was a little, what we call a little bodgy boy out in New Zealand in those days. Teddy boys in Great Britain, I suppose, it was a similar kind of affectation or whatever it was at that time. It felt very real to us. We were being moody and magnificent.
As you mentioned, you moved from New Zealand to the UK, to London, and then you dived your feet into the world of acting in the theatre. What attracted you to say, okay, I want to be on this stage?
I loved the theatre. I was writing songs. I bought my first guitar when I was about 15, and I was a war baby, like the Beatles. In fact, I used to write songs with a chum of George Harrison's. Went to school with George Harrison when I got to England. We were that age group, and a guitar, rock and roll, and a guitar came into our hands. We always wanted to be Elvis Presley, or I don't know, Little Richard, or Chuck Berry. We wanted to change the world with rock and roll, 3 chords. And so I was always writing songs for myself, derivative, no doubt. But as Coco Chanel once said, anyone who thinks they're original has no sense of history, which is very reassuring. So yeah, that was it really. And I got to England in 64. I got to London in 65. And I met up with some people. I'd been on the boat going back to England with some Australians, and one of them also wanted to get into show business. And we saw an advert in the stage newspaper for horse riding in movies, and I could ride horses. And so we were all taken up to this paddock and asked to ride a rather fat mare, bareback around a paddock a couple of times. Those that stayed on got the job, and those that fell off didn't. Thankfully, I was, my knees, and I knew how to do it actually. And that there is a truth that there is a relationship between horses and people, and horses like some people and they don't like others. You may think that's a myth, but it's not. And I get on very well with horses, and it's rather lovely to know that. So yeah, I got the job writing horses in movies, and then I saw an advert in a newspaper again, stage newspaper, for a drama school that was evening, and it was doing the method. It was like the actors, based on the actors' workshop, the actors' studio rather. Ours was indeed called the actors' workshop, but it was in the same kind of non-acting, which was very strange really, because non-acting was that kind of acting was very mannered. Being natural was very kind of, being very natural, and it was all very, very considered, the naturalness, which is rather funny.
Yes.
But, there's no doubting the genius of Marlon Brando. His acting is the powerfulness and the muscularity of his acting, and the muscularity indeed of, what's it called? The one with the one with that made him famous. It's lovely Tennessee Williams play, not on the waterfront, but you see his acting there. What's it called, friends? What's it called? A Streetcar Named Desire.
Yes.
There you go. It wasn't difficult. It wasn't difficult. And of course that kind of acting. That kind of mean, moody and magnificent kind of acting appealed. It had power. Like I think you'll find that many actors, elderly actors, were moved by his performances, and somehow or other his approach coloured their own approach to acting as well. I think Anthony Hopkins. I think maybe he was like Scorsese and all the other people.
Yes.
You just had to admire this man. So that was what we were after. And then at the drama school, I met lovely Arthur Kelly, who, as I say, was a friend of George Harrison's, and we started to write songs together. And we found a music publisher, and so we were able to write songs in our bedsit together and go up to this office, which was representing us. That gave us quite a thrill. No songs were ever used or sold from that little moment in time, but it was rather nice. We felt as if we were being part of the music world, and we'd go and make demos, and then we'd meet other musicians, and so it would go on, and that was lovely. And through my friends at that drama school, I moved into not the rockocracy, but I felt very much a part of the 60s, and to be in Great Britain in the 1960s, especially London, was probably the best place in the world, truthfully. I'm in San Francisco maybe, but London, King's Road on a Saturday morning was colourful and wonderful, and we were all a bit stoned as well, probably, and everyone has a good time. Nobody had any money, particularly, but that didn't matter. It was just joyous in a way.
So you did Jesus Christ Superstar, and
Yeah.
then remember watching the documentary, you got let go from that. How and in what space did the story of the Rocky Horror Picture come to you? Was it a just flow through, or was it thoughts or observations?
It was probably a combination of many things, the zeitgeist of the time anyway. When I got back to England and I was staying with my gran, and the wrestling used to come on, black and white television, and the wrestling on Saturday afternoon, the wrestling used to come on. And the theatricality of it was appealing, the noise and the sweat, and men in budgie smugglers is rather appealing. And there's one called Adrian Street, who used to wear makeup in the wrestling ring, and I found that very sexy in its own kind of way, and very brave, as well. And there's no doubt that Rocky Horror, I think we even approached Adrian Street to play Rocky at one stage. His agent said no, and I bet they wish they hadn't. But we were much better off with a younger chap, anyway. So that was that. So there was just part, and glam rock and all that kind of stuff was going on at the same time. Sexual liberation was happening as well, not only with the pill, but homosexuality had been not made no longer a crime, decriminalized about time, and so that we were just part of that moment in time. Really, I think we could have been a year earlier. Maybe it wouldn't have worked. A year later, perhaps it wouldn't have worked, and perhaps even if Tim Curry hadn't played that role, maybe it wouldn't have worked. It was just really was a thing that hit the spot at the right time. Its longevity is however something else altogether, and yes. I still don't really have my head around that, truthfully.
So basically, understanding now that it's been the success that it has been, and it's now 50 years later. There's the documentary. In your mind's eye, or in your knowledge of seeing you at a younger age writing that before it was released, how does that make you feel?
It's astonishing. I mean, the fact that it went on in the first place is quite astonishing. Remember, this was at a theatre which was dedicated to, let me say, first class theatre. Entertainments what they were about, and we were an entertainment. And I think entertainment is vastly underrated. It's belittled. I think entertainment should be in everything, present in all theatrical productions. Excellence, by default, is entertaining. If it's excellent, you can't fault it. Then it's entertaining, isn't it? I hate being hit over the head with a message. I detest going into the theatre and it's humorless and it's worthy and all the rest of it. There has to have a lightness of touch, has to entertain. The only piece of theatre that's ever come out of the Royal Court that really has had an impact, social impact, is the piece that they don't particularly like very much. It was and is an entertainment. So there they were, trying to promote or encourage new writing, the muscular social theatre, and here we have it. And it's not exactly their cup of tea. It is rather odd.
When you wrote the script and the idea and the concept, were you always planning to participate and portray Riff Raff, or was that?
I know. I think I would. I think I probably would have liked to have played Frank. Actually, I was when I was writing, and I was probably writing that for myself.
Okay.
I think Jim, in fact, insisted that I, strut around the rehearsal room and sing a few songs, just to make sure. The fact of the matter is that the Riff Raff character is much. I mean, look, I'm built for the character, aren't I? Truthfully, I mean the Igor character, the Nosferatu kind of look, it works terribly well with someone my shape. Uh,
Now, having written it and then realizing it on the stage, were there any challenges in that visual realization, or did it flow naturally from the paper to the stage?
No, it's scribbled pages. It's scribbled pages, all very organic though. There was no moment of time where we go, oh shit, we're gonna have a powwow and think about this. It was all terribly quick and terribly organic because everyone was there to have fun. We weren't there to impress people with our theatrical abilities or our singing or anything. But yes, the first thing on the agenda was let's have some fun. Let's play dressing up and making believe, and have a lot of fun. It was very relaxed. There was no pressure at all. I didn't feel any pressure, and then there I was playing a role and providing maybe a song, going home and having to write a song and go back the next day. There was a kind of ease to it all.
And in the creating of the songs for the production, tell us that creative process.
Well, actually, I'd written many of the songs before we even started. They were sitting in a drawer. I'm Going Home was one, for example. And then Jim Sharman, the director, would say, "I think we need a song there." And I say, "Okay, well, I'll go and write that." But the nice thing about that is, you see, I was writing the story. I knew about the characters, who they were, and the situation they were in at that particularly time, and the actual place of where they were when the need for the song comes along. So in many ways, a lot of the work is done because you know who they are, what they want. So you kind of know what the song's going to be like, what they're going to say. That brings ease to the job once again, because you kind of know what you want. You know what you want them to say. Touch me, for instance, was Julie Covington. We had as our original Janet. Of course, she was a well-known voice, famous voice, the first voice of Vita on record, and she was our Janet, and she didn't have a song other than "Damn It, Janet." And so I went home and wrote Touch Me, and I'm not boasting or anything, but probably within an hour or an hour and a half, because it's very basic. Once again, simple. What does she want? What's she going to say? It's a teenage girl, and those 50s, because there's a very 50s couple. In fact, one of the critics called Brad and Janet Ike's children, Eisenhower. He referred to them as Ike's children, and in a way, he's kind of right. They represent that 50s couple, don't they? In a way, walking into a future which is uncertain.
You said that you went on stage with the team to have fun. Wasn't any pressure. It was relaxed. Were you surprised by the initial success and then the success that it had in Los Angeles, or were you just in the moment feeling it as it was going on?
I was always very dispassionate. I didn't become involved with I never had enough confidence to do that. And when Michael White, when we transferred from the theatre upstairs at the Royal Court to our first cinema further down the King's Road, that night he said, "I think we've got to hit Richard." I went, "Oh, okay." Got in the car and went home. That was not going to be a concern to me. That makes no sense. Things can get taken away from you. When we finally closed after 3 years in New York City, after a disastrous run at the Belasco, which rather good show, I have to say, but the critics didn't like it there. Tim and I standing on the sidewalk, and I said, "Well, that looks like it's all over now, Tim, doesn't it? We've done the movie, and that's it." He said, "Yeah, but wasn't it a wonderful ride for 3 years? And what a fabulous ride for 3 years." And I mean, "Yes, absolutely. Now we'll all fuck off and go and do something else,
Tell us about the filming of the movie.
I can't really. It was cold. And it was winter. We got up early in the morning and we worked out. There was no. Once again, there was. I've been very stressed. There were a couple of near goes on it, with accidents on the set from time to time. But it was I wasn't on the set all the time, so I missed a lot of that drama. Motorcycle, I think, crashed over, and then other stuff was going on. So there was. I'm not going to say it was easy. It wasn't easy for the director had the hardest part, and Tim, I would have thought they had the hardest roles to the hardest work to do.
And did you have lots of input into the filming of the movie?
No, not really. No, Jim and I went to a hotel room and sat down, and we turned the stage play script into a screenplay, and I sat there really, and my job was I must creative secretary to the editor, to the director. I want to do this. I will see that. I see the shot, and my job was to play creative secretary. So that was all. That worked.
Obviously, you've got the legacy of this project, but you've also been doing other projects, a voiceover work for Phineas and Ferb, and a whole bunch of different things. What do you love about performing, whether in front of the camera, on the stage, or voiceover work?
I love storytelling. I love narrative poems. I think probably of my love of literature, they take supreme position in a way. I like the structure. I like the rhythm of the words. I like tumbling words. I like a storyline. I love poetry, but I hate blank verse and show off romantic sound. The classic poets don't do it for me particularly, I have to say. Banjo Patterson's "A Man from Snowy River" is one of the best narrative poems in English that I believe have been written. It has a great journey. And the meter never changes, but it speeds up, which is incredible, as well as that horses start to gallop. It's wonderfully written. It's very evocative of the Australian outback, who feel it. It's quite delightful, and so that's where I go. I write satirical fairy. I've written a satirical fairy tale in verse called "The Kingdom of Bling," which is an anti-Trump piece, which we're attempting to turn into a stop-motion animated piece. We took it on tour around in New Zealand and did it as a radio musical play to much success. I've just written a fairy tale book once again. It's called "A Tune for the New Harvest Moon," which again is a satirical cautionary tale. It's a long piece. I could narrate the whole thing to you as it happens. So, but it's quite a long piece. And in fact, what I want to do now is get a children's choir to actually sing the entire piece. That would be rather lovely.
It's 50 years of Rocky Horror. We've just done, or you've just filmed, and it was released last year, the documentary which your son Linus produced, directed. When the idea for the documentary came through, was it like, yes, let's do it? Or was it just relaxed and organic like a movie and the play?
It was an issue. It was 50 years, and Linus wasn't the only person that had made overtures. Several overtures have come from different companies to mark this moment in time, thinking, well, we could do a doco on that, and you can't blame them. But when Linus came on board, then there's no... Why go anywhere else?
Yeah,
a safe pair of hands, someone who knows the piece better than anybody else. I would imagine, other than those of us that took part in it themselves. So yeah, it was, and have a steady hand on the tiller is good. That's the best thing.
And it was the first time that you were collaborating with Linus in this space. How was that for you?
Oh, that's all right. We're father. My children love me.
But obviously he was wearing a different hat as director producer. So were there any instances of like son father versus director producer?
No. He might say, "Can you sing a song?" And I say, "Well, I'll do it a bit later." Yes, give me a second.
Okay. So you've referenced these couple of fairy tales and things that you've written. What else is coming up over the next period of time?
The Kingdom of Bling, actually, I've just had an overture from a theatrical group in England that might want to stage it. So that's rather nice thought. So that's what I'm dealing with at the moment, and I've got actually, I've just I'm working on a comedy called Et tu Rosebud, and it's a Caesar comedy,
Yeah.
a musical. So yes, that's something else that has been pressing me. In fact, I've been working feverishly over cutting the script down and rearranging words here and there. So that's another thought. It was something I was looking at in 1988, and I know that because I was sent a CD with a cassette with that date on it. And I had just had the cassette that transferred it from analog to digital and put onto a disc. And I took the disc into a chum's recording studio yesterday. We've downloaded that. And the songs actually on the demo were damn good. The script was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. But the songs were damn good. So I've rewritten the script and written some more songs. And I'm working on that at the moment. It keeps me busy. I love going to bed with a section of words in my head. If I'm writing some lyrics or a song or whatever, and I've got, I don't know, 4 lines. They're almost there. You know they're almost there, and you juggle and you juggle and you juggle and juggle. And I'm falling asleep with that little something like that going on. It's rather enjoyable.
Besides your passion of storytelling and your passion of words and creating, what keeps motivating you to keep creating after the number of years that you have been creating for?
Because I feel I get moody and guilty if I never used to get bored. You see, now at my age, you're not the same kind of mobility and or enthusiasm to go out and you find yourself sitting and you're not careful, you can get very bored because there's this lack of ability to do anything else, perhaps. So having mental kind of challenges while you're not as mobile as you once were is rather good. Yes, it keeps the brain entertained.
So it's still being moody and magnificent, correct?
I don't know about that. I won't go that far. I might be pushing it.
Having been in the industry for the number of years that you have, what are the changes that you've noticed over time for positive and for negative?
Well, positive are hardware areas. Lighting in the theatres is astonishing now. It was so antiquated when I began 50 years ago, and now we have cold light, and that's a wonderful. Sound is another improvement on even at theatres. In fact, I don't think the drama schools are teaching stagecraft anymore. Because once upon a time, you see, back in those days, stagecraft was essential: how to stand, where to stand, and how to hit the back of the auditorium, and yet still sound as if not as if you're not just declaiming on stage. I don't think they teach stagecraft anymore because they might have artificial, kind of sound enhancements around the proscenium arch these days.
Yeah,
I think actors can be a bit smaller, I suppose. So that's good. A great loss is the opportunities of a weekly rep. That was a wonderful kind of idea, but television and cinema and other distractions have taken that away. The loss of general auditions. General auditions back in the 60s and the 70s and even to the 80s were marvelous. A new show was coming into town and there was a general audition, and outside the stage door on a Monday morning there'd be a line of 30 people wanting to have 5 minutes on the stage. It didn't matter. if you didn't get it really particular. Yes, it did. But, at least you'd had 5 minutes in front of somebody on a stage, and maybe they might remember you in the future for something else. And you met other actors, and that's all disappeared. So there's ups and downs. There's not a lot of work for actors these days. And the costs are very high too, and prohibitive, I think. The cost of putting on Rocky in New York City at their presence was phenomenal. I'm not going to say how much. It came to my ears, and I said, I don't want to listen to that. That just doesn't make any sense.
Amazing. So, Richard, the podcast is listened to throughout the world. As a final message to the audience, what would you like to say?
Keep the rainbow banner flying high.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Celeb Savant. Please follow Barrett on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Celeb Savant. That's CelebSavant.